to begin.
Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Social Primate. Again, this is Eddie Aguirre, and today I'm joined by the one and only Alejandra Martinez. How you doing, Alejandra?
I'm trying to be as good as possible right now.
For reals.
Yeah.
I mean, just to get started, I do have a few words before we get this episode started. I know there's terrorizing happening in our communities. We've been consistently having to fight back over the last couple of days out here in Southeast LA and all across Los Angeles. But one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation was just to be able to humanize our communities a little bit more right now that we're seeing the opposite in the media. And I think it's important for us to be able to take that narrative back and allow ourselves a space and give others a space as well to be able to share stories and experiences of them growing up here and to really show the world, in a sense, right, that we're more than just what we're seeing in media. But with that being said, Alejandra, I know you've been working on this project for a couple of years now. You're the creator of the Southeast Los Angeles Community Map. And we were talking about this over the last couple of weeks after I was at the Open Streets event. Christian Vasquez was one of the main individuals that was kind of spearheading that event. Mm-hmm. So I'm for sure grateful that he gave me the opportunity to set up a booth and be able to just be among community. And if people missed out on Open Streets, this was an event that the City of Bell helped put together where they closed down the street, basically like maybe 4 blocks from Otis on Gage all the way to about where Veterans Park is on Wilcox, I believe. So it was a great event just to see everybody out and about. And through that, I had the opportunity to collect some just experiences and stories from the individuals on the ground. And at the end of this, walking away from it, like it gave me like this new, I don't know, I felt reinvigorated with passion for Southeast LA. And I think hopefully this is what this episode provides to our listeners. You mind telling me a little bit about your project and how that came about?
Yeah, definitely. I think first I'll just jump on Open Streets. I'm from Bell and I have a bicycle, and to know that I had missed like an amazing Open Streets event, I definitely felt the FOMO because I live really close to Veterans Park. And I'm like, I could have just popped on my bike and had a nice stroll. Seemed like it was a fun event with good turnout. But on my end, I can give you the spiel. The Stella Community Map is a digital and in-person community mapping project, and I started it around 2020, that summer of 2020. And the mission behind it was to preserve and also uplift our collective memories of Southeast LA, specifically with like a built environment lens. And I'll have the chance to share later that I'm an urban planner, and the built environment and the way our cities are built and formed and shaped are very central to how I perceive and understand, where I grew up and where I come from. But at the core of the mapping project, which is both digital, but also it relies heavily on in-person community mapping, it uses storytelling and memory mapping to assert our presence in the historical record. And it's also a tool that I use to counter the deficit narratives that exist about Southeast LA. And I think most importantly, it's a tool for our community to inscribe our more nuanced relationships with place and inscribe it on our own terms. So that's why it was really great to see story gathering at Open Streets because it's an instance where community is getting to share their stories on their terms and their perspectives in Southeast LA. Yeah.
And now a question for you, like, why Southeast LA? Like, out of all the spaces you could have made this map out of, like, why did you choose it? And I know you've grown up in Southeast LA basically your whole life.
Yeah.
Does that have something to do with that?
Oh, for sure. I think for sure. I'm definitely born and raised in Southeast LA. The first time I ever really left home was just recently, going to grad school, going to the East Coast. But I'd say all of my formative years have been spent in those small bunch of cities. I grew up, going to Cruzitas when I was a teenager, and I think that sort of opened my perspective to like all the different cities around me and how we're all interconnected. We're all hanging out at Cruzitas. And so that gave me a more regional perspective about community, looking beyond just the individual city that I'm from. But then during the time that I was growing up, I think we also started to see the identity of Southeast LA starting to emerge, the whole Sela thing, the whole branding, and take it as you will. I think many of us did, cling on to that more regional identity because our cities are so small, so interconnected.
Yeah, for real. And I totally see that because if I was to go back, let's say 15 years, there was that Sela pride, right? Like the word Sela itself wasn't necessarily like in everybody's vocabulary then, and it was just starting. And as far as I can remember, when I was like about 15, there was no love for Southeast LA from my end, Mm-hmm. I grew up just seeing friends go into gangs. Sometimes they'll end up getting killed. We saw the corruption happening in the city of Cudahy, and I didn't like it. I wanted to move away. I wanted to get out of here. And then when I did for a bit, when I moved to Montebello, I was like, man, I miss Southeast LA, and I had my kid. I started realizing that my community and my friends and my family all resided in Southeast LA. And then I started feeling this type of way that I felt like where I needed to start reflecting as to why things are the way they are, and kind of like when you grow up, at least for me, when I became a parent, you try not to judge your parents' decisions because that's what they can give you then at the time, And similar to Southeast LA, I feel like I was only searching for what I thought I needed from there, and it wasn't there. And I made this idea in my head that that's all it was ever going to be, And then fast forward a couple of years, we started seeing this identity thing start coming up with Southeast LA, start seeing these voices come out. And it just felt very important to me, dig or scratch deeper into this thing and just realize like, okay, how are we going to take action here?
Mm-hmm. I think, the deficit narrative is really powerful because I think that journey that you were on is something that resonates with a lot of us growing up there. Like there's this moment where you feel the pressure to, go to university or, create access to go live in a different place so you don't have to come back to Southeast LA, right? Yeah. It seemed like an accomplishment to move out of Southeast LA, or at least that was sort of the narrative that I was working with, growing up. And I think a lot of us, as we've grown up, and as I was mentioning earlier, understanding the structural reasons why our community is the way it is, I think brought a lot of us back home when there were moments where we were being pulled away. And I'll just sneak in a little dig at Downey, but most of my family is from Downey. And I think that was the first instance where you felt this divide and sort of shame about maybe of never making it to that Mexican Beverly Hills, instead
right,
being on this side of the LA River. And I think that narrative was very powerful for me and how it warped my own perception about where I was from and where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be in the future.
Again, thank you for just sharing the space here with me and being able to go through this and at the same time just kind of build on what everybody's been building, So what kind of stuff can people find on the Sela community map?
Yeah, I think the first place you can find us is Instagram at the Sela Community Map. And there you'll see on the Instagram, some of the stories that are featured in this digital mapping project. You'll see them illustrated on the page just to sort of give it a little bit more life to the stories that people share through this project. But then if you go online, I think the bulk of the work lives in an online map that, sort of catalogs all the different stories that I've collected from people online about their relationship to Southeast LA. And then another chunk is about stories I've collected in person as I've done like community mapping pop-ups throughout Southeast LA in the past couple of years. And that's sort of where I'm trying to build out an archive of our stories and our own relationship to Southeast LA. So Instagram, I think, would be where to find us, and you'll get all the links that you need to sort of navigate to all the different components of the project.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely recommend the listeners to go check that out, especially if you're in the Southeast LA area. Yeah, it's really experiencing these spaces in a new light, because again, the point of this episode is just to, and not even the episode, just the point of these stories is at the end of the day just to reclaim that space back. This is for us to keep, for us to share and, and keep building on everybody else's movements. But with that being said, I do want to get into the stories collected throughout this event. The first one being the city of Bell. If you want to start off on that, Alejandra?
Okay, sure. And I guess I did grow up in Bell. I still live in Bell right now, so it feels fitting to start. But the first comment that, again, makes me feel FOMO is that Open Streets was a total success because I got to ride skates with my childhood friend.
Let's see. Number 2 is been the resident of Bell for 23 years. Always have gone for walks, runs on Gage Avenue. Bell will always be my go-to.
I think it reminds me of my dad. I'm like, it's not him because he's not a runner, but he's definitely someone who goes on long walks. Yeah. We live really close to LA River in Bell, and that man is able to wake up like at 6 a.m. and just walk for 2 hours. So I don't know, maybe they should meet up.
Start a little club, You want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, this one's short and sweet. But every time that I was here in Bell, I feel happy. Do you know how old this person was? I'm just curious.
Yeah. No, you know what? No, not the specific one. But hey, I think we all find happiness where we feel comfortable and safe, and, at the end of the day, whether these narratives say otherwise, like these are places that allow us to, feel security. And I think that's key to being happy.
Yeah, it's cute to know the contentment that they feel when they're here.
Yeah. See, my entire life, my family's school, Halloween competitions, 11 5Ks,
Wow.
AB Donuts, my first pop-up events, born and raised in Bell. That one's full with pride there, born and raised in Bell, and that's claiming,
Yeah, I mean, 11 5Ks is impressive too, because I know Bell has been doing their races. I think I've only done one, and I've been there for 25 years. 11 is consistent. I feel like they've been doing it for 11 years.
Hey, congratulations. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. So the next one is David Ruiz, the HP Maywood Bell Tri-City area where I grew up. And then they note the transformation of Pacific, Maywood, and Ferris, Viva Raza, Vernon Air, Bell Mayor scandal.
Damn.
That was a laundry list of different things.
Yeah, for real. They had a Post-its worth of space, and they fit everything in there.
They fit everything in there. Always have to cite the Bell Mayor scandal, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. I fell down in the middle of the street, and people saw, and I saw people laughing in their car on Wilcox. Yeah, dude.
This one resonates with me specifically because when I read it, I was like, was this... There's no way I was there and I wrote this, but for me, I was writing on Florence. Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
Okay, so I ate shit on my scooter on Florence coming home from middle school, face planted on the ground, braces stuck to my mouth. And then a lady pulled up in the intersection in her car and rolled down her windows and was like, "Are you okay?" And then all her kids were in the car looking at me. So I was like, wait, this feels like me. I remember falling down in the middle of the street, and I remember people seeing me. They probably weren't laughing, but it totally felt that way. But then I remembered I wasn't there. I obviously didn't write this down, but that was me.
Yeah, this one time I was on Randolph there's this place that was called Just Tires by the 99-cent store.
Oh, okay, yeah, the green place.
Yeah, the green place.
Yeah.
I was riding a skateboard. I hit a rock, and then I just launched myself maybe 2 feet, fell on my side, and I got a big old bruise right on my legs. Not fun.
Not at all.
And then you want to do the next one?
Yeah. So this city saw us grow up. Many childhood memories were built here. It's nice to see nearby cities come together. So I like how it also speaks to the idea that, we're more than just our individual cities, but there's just a sense of more regional community. Mm-hmm. Definitely seeing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that last part, nearby cities coming together. I think this is one of the things that events such as the Sella Arts Festival, Southgate Art Walk, different little, events that we every now and then get to enjoy as a community. It shows us whoa, there's a lot more creatives out here. There's a lot more people with intention and purpose of what they're trying to do with their craft. And I think that's awesome to see when we get spaces like this. Mm-hmm. Let's see. And then I got an audio coming up here.
Okay.
We got our first audio from Amanda del Silugo. And here we go.
I was born and raised here in Southeast LA, all over Southeast LA, but I grew up in Huntington Park. And I think something that a lot of people think is that this community is just dirty and unkept and that people don't care. Yeah. But that's city management issues. Yeah. That's not because people don't care. I see people sweep the front of their homes. I've experienced the love and care of my neighbors and my friends. I had a house fire in 2012 and we lost our home. We were homeless for a year. And our neighbors who just moved in across the street from us, they were brand new to the neighborhood, but we're the kind of community that takes care of each other. And even though they didn't know us, they offered us their garage. They offered us their covered backyard to store our things for a year because we had nowhere to leave our things because the house was gone. And luckily we were able to have our things from inside the house that survived, but we had nowhere to put them. And they let us keep our things in their renovated garage for a year. They didn't even know us, and it's when I wake up in the mornings and I go to my front door and there's bags of fruit because my neighbors had more fruit on their trees than they can eat and they thought of us. And it's saving parking spots for each other. And it's going to my neighbors' daughter's quinceañera, who I saw when she was a year old. Like, that's what Southeast LA is. It's beautiful, it's love, it's friendship, it's community. And people refuse to see it that way because then they'd have to admit to themselves that they're part of the problem. And it's easier to pretend that it's not important than it is to admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
But it's time for us to take our own accountability to build this place into the kinds of cities that our community has always deserved. We've deserved open streets. Yes. We've deserved farmers markets. We've deserved equitable media representation. We've always deserved that. It's just time for us to take it into our own hands and give ourselves that gift.
All right, so I'll pause it real quick then, just because I've had a follow-up question for Amanda and a few of the people here who left some audio, and it was just, if people who have never been to Southeast LA came through, like, what we recommend to them, or to check out something local, and this was her response.
Hell yeah. Okay, so my name is Amanda Dulcet Lugo. I work for this publication called Los Angeles Public Press. And every week I do this thing called Friday Flyer Drop, and I include a lot of Southeast LA businesses that are hosting free events. And one of the places that I love to shout out all the time is Art Space Huntington Park. Art Space HP always has wonderful free community-centered events. Crucitas is a great local business to support. Any place up and down Pacific Boulevard. I mean, any place you can support that is not a major corporation. When you come down, visit our liquor stores, get a haircut at a local barber shop, like, buy local and support local. That's how we build each other up and keep beautiful things in our cities.
That was from Amanda. As she mentioned, she's a journalist for LA Public Press and a community member of Huntington Park.
I mean, you started off really strong with that story for sure. And I think one of the major takeaways for me, it's a reminder that, you know, the cities and where we're from, we're more than just our government, our bureaucracy. That's only one facet. But at its core, Southeast LA is not, you know, the officials. It's not the people in office necessarily that define our lived experience. And I think at the end of the day, it's your neighbors, it's community that really are the fundamental core of Southeast LA. So I'm glad that she started off very strong.
Shout out, Amanda. Thank you so much for that submission. And with that, we continue to our second city here. We got the City of Maywood. And I'll start off with that first one. I have lived in Maywood all of my life. Favorite memory is going to Maywood Park and eating, I forgot what that was, eating something. See, well, let me pull that up real quick because I'll actually post it. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have a lot of memories in Maywood Park. One of them being, I remember when they first announced that I think it was like what do they call, like a brown field or something? Yeah,
like a Superfund site.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? Like, we've been playing in this park for so long, and now it's like contaminated. Like, okay, thanks. And it's a recurring issue that we also do happen to see in Southeast LA pretty often. Whether it's Excite, whether it's the Delta Airlines dropping jet fuel on kids, it's consistent. And then, you know, we have even I think it's East Yard.
I forget the other parts.
Yeah,
of the
but
acronym.
They're doing environmental justice work there. You know, so it's just a consistent thing. But you know, if it's Maywood, it's still, regardless of what's going on, people make it a way to feel like home.
Definitely. So number 2 is I met my best friend at Maywood Academy. And the fact that there was a time before Maywood Academy, like I remember when that school did not exist, and now they were like the Nighthawks or something.
Yeah, that's the other.
I think so. And now Maywood has a whole nother high school too, I think Mesas. So like they're building a lot of schools right there. And it's such a tiny city.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was in Bell High School, this was back in I keep saying 20, like if it was just a couple years ago, 2006. I think this is prior to Maywood Academy being built. So people were getting sent over to Bell High School, and some people at EOC, and HP High. But Bell High School was so overcrowded. Like every time during lunch break, people were walking through the hallways. It felt like sardines. Like you were at a concert crowd. Like crazy. So that I'm assuming that school and the Mesa school kind of helped ease that capacity, you know?
Like, do LAUSD kids still have tracks? Because I think that was part of the overcrowding part.
You know what? I don't know. I think they might. I know ELC doesn't have tracks because it's just one class, but maybe Bell High School still probably does.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's how you know it was overcrowded.
Let's see here. The Sleepy Lagoon murder led to the Suit riots. Mm-hmm. That one was interesting because I had a couple older gentlemen come up to me the day of, and they were like hesitant. They're like, "No, I don't want to share this story. You know, I don't want to talk about it." And I was like, "Come on, like you have to. You've been here for so long." And he came back like an hour later, like by himself, and he was like, "I'm gonna write something." And I was like, "Let's do it." And then he brought this up, and I personally appreciate the fact that after the hesitation, you know, of wanting to share because you feel like maybe it's not valid or it doesn't fit in this narrative. Like, no, the point of this whole thing was just to express yourself, right? You know, this is a lived experience, and it's valid.
Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about Maywood, and if you want to learn more about the Sleepy Lagoon murders, or the Zoot Suit riots, there's an entire mural now at Maywood Riverfront Park that sort of speaks to that history of Sleepy Lagoon, because as it turns out, one of these formative, you know, histories happened really close to us, and I had no clue that it was in Southeast LA.
And that's exactly what I was kind of taken aback by, because the Suit riots were huge. Like, it was a big event, especially for Mexican Americans, and the fact that it was so fairly close to us, I was like, what? But definitely interesting to know that there's a loaded history in the areas where we're from, you know. Let's see here. I'm sorry, you read the last one, right?
No, I think you did. So
okay,
go
for it.
Jump to the next one. But they've lived 30 years in Sela, HP, Bell, and Maywood, and they grew up in this community, and they're proud. And I guess it's also a community that's hard to leave. I don't blame you. It's hard leaving home.
Yeah. I see. The next one we have here is wonderful family dinners and lots of music, which I feel Maywood is pretty good for, because every time I go to Maywood, there's like a party like every couple of houses, which I think it's great. You know, there's nobody telling you like, "Hey, turn the music off." Like, everybody knows, okay, we're gonna party this weekend. There's gonna be a bunch of them, and I think that's one thing I love about Maywood. It's just always feels like there's something happening there.
It's the iconic garage driveway parties with like a white
There you go.
Yeah. And then the final one is helping a pack of ducklings cross the road while a truck driver blocked the street to help. Now, thank you for putting your life on the line.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, every now and then you get to see some ducks from the what's it called, LA River, just kind of doing their thing. And this is a beautiful little gesture. You know, it shows the humanity. But with that, we're gonna go to our next audio by Brian. And here we go.
Well, my name is Brian Cano Pedrosa, and I do Honcholo's face painting. I'm just another community member right here, trying to enjoy the open streets. Dude, I'm tired from. I don't know if you see the medal. I did the 5K, dude, and I am out of shape, brother. 37 years old, out of shape, but I did it in under 45 minutes. 44, but who's counting? What inspires me to stay here is the hope that this community continues to strive and grow and kind of look more at the positives instead of the negatives. It's really a driving force, but it's hard. But I'm still, out here trying to be involved in the community, and we'll just see how it goes. But I'm hopeful for the future. Like, it's a great city, it's a lot of growth, a lot of new businesses coming up, and that's what makes me stay hopeful and excited for the city of Bell. Well, you can find me on IG. You can just hashtag Honcholo's face painting. You can find me there. I'm going to hopefully do a piece, and you get to reshare it with all the, Social Primate fans. I'm one of them.
Shout out to Brian. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just a couple weeks after the open streets, he sent me a reel. Apparently he painted the sticker I gave you, the gorilla, he painted it on somebody's back.
Oh my.
And I was like, what? This is crazy. That was really cool. Sometimes just as somebody who hosts this, it's cool to see people's expression of it in a way, and it's really cool. I was like, damn, thank you. So thank you so much for that, Brian.
Number one fan.
But no, that's again one of these stories. Bell has its history. We both know that. But at the end of the day, I think there's a few people in it who have their head on their shoulders, and they're really trying to do their best for everybody. Let's see. And now I'm actually going to play one more audio here by Franco.
Su nombre es
Franco Adame.
usted viviendo aquí en esta ciudad. ¿Qué son las cosas que usted piensa que tiene que hacer mejor la ciudad?
Primeramente, más cuidado con los niños, porque los niños son el futuro de esta nación. Y en tocante a mí, pues yo llegué en los 80s, aquí hice toda mi vida, y me gustaría, vuelvo a recalcar, más cuidado con los niños, porque pues ese es el futuro.
And that was Franco. Thank you. And sorry for my Spanish there, people. All right. We'll go ahead and move with Bell Gardens now. Do you want to start off on that one?
Sure. Let's see. My love for bike riding started from Bell Gardens to Maywood, crossing the railroad tracks with my cousins. Core memories. No, I picked up biking during the pandemic, and I've never felt so lucky to live by the LA River, because you just go out the door and you have 30 miles that you can do back and forth.
Yeah, just clear.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Have you ever done the trip to Long Beach?
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's a nice little trip.
No, we're lucky to have access to that. So.
Yeah. See, the next one we have here is my partner opened up a shop called Shadow Realm Collectibles. They do tournaments, sell Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards in Bell Gardens, and I'm so proud of him. And, hey, props to that, because I know a lot of times it's not the easiest to open up a business in Southeast LA, right? We all go out of this area to usually shop and go to different spots, and just to be able to keep it home, I think that's a great step in trying to, again, keep the business local.
Yeah. And if we're talking about urban planning and third spaces, I think these card game shops are so lively.
Yeah.
You go and the tables are filled. It's the place to be for a lot of people. I personally don't play games or do any tournaments, but I feel like people should really check them out. They're underrated spaces to just hang out with people and have fun.
Just exchange. At the end of the day, we're all exchanging things, and I think that's exchanging energies most importantly. Let's see here. Sorry, go for it.
Let's see. My favorite memory being there for the groundbreaking of Bell Garden Skate Park when I was a kid. I actually have a little ID for the Bell Garden Skate Park when I was 4 years old or something.
Oh, damn, 4 years old?
Yeah. But I wasn't skating. Well, I wasn't skating with a skateboard. I was skating with my rollerblades.
Okay.
But core memory too.
Let's see. The next one we have here is so many Saturdays getting deals at the swap meet. Oh, yeah. So my mom's there for sure every weekend. It's a great spot. I don't even buy anything. Honestly, when I go there, I go to this lonchera in the back. And they sell this drink called, I want to say it's called a paloma, but it's a sangria with ice, oranges, and tajin. Bomb.
They sell alcohol at the swap meet?
Well, it's not alcohol. It's just a sangria, the
yeah, I know what
ones.
you mean. With the little grape.
Yeah, with the little grape,
okay.
yeah. And it's really refreshing. It feels like an alcoholic drink.
I was like, that might take me to the swap meet. Yeah.
Go for it.
Favorite memory was going to the pool at Ford Park, and now I'm excited that the new one is going to open soon. No, yeah, I think this is hilarious, because now that I'm seeing the updates for the Bell Gardens pool, everyone's like, HP could have learned something.
For real.
From how they're doing it.
Yeah, and they moved fast. They moved a lot faster than HP did, because we know how that ended up.
Yeah.
And then I think with that, I actually have a conversation from Gabby, and I believe she's part of a group called Active Seller, one of those.
Active Seller.
Active Seller, there you go.
Hi, my name is Gabby Gomez, and I am from the city of Bell Gardens. I grew up in Southeast LA. I am a graduate of Bell Gardens High School, class of 1986. And my favorite memory of Sela, bike-related memory, is during the pandemic, actually. I got to work from home full-time, and I live right across from Ford Park, which backs up to the Rio Hondo bike trail. And people couldn't do anything else. We couldn't congregate anywhere. You couldn't go to the movies. You couldn't go anywhere. And so I think that the bike probably saved a lot of people during COVID, because it was the one activity that you can get out in the open air, even in a group, and be able to ride and feel safe with all of the fear-mongering that was happening at the time. So I think it saved a lot of folks during the pandemic. It saved their sanity, more than anything, right? And there's a funny thing that happens with bikes is that either you love it or you hate it. And I think that for a lot of people, I think they grew to love the bike because ever since then, biking hasn't really slowed down in the area. It's actually increased. And so it's great to see a lot more people on bikes back in the day. And I think even some people today still see bicycling as broke folks' transportation, right? A lot of people around this area don't typically ride by choice. They ride because they have no other choice, right? You can't afford a car, can't afford insurance, public transportation, schedules, and all of that stuff. And I think that biking really offers people a good alternative, and that's affordable to them. So it's great to see the people in the area are still biking. It's great to see the bike community growing within Sela. And fast forward a couple of years after COVID, and I ended up on the city council. I actually was appointed to fill a vacancy, and during that time, I also became mayor. And during that time, one of the things that I really wanted to get done was to do something. I wanted bike lanes, but, that takes forever. So I ended up doing what I could, and I asked for all of the sharrows within the city to be repainted with the high-vis green background to kind of let people know in the city, people that live in the city, people that drive through the city, that this is a bike-friendly town. So, the work continues. I'm trying to do my part. I'm hosting a ride every Tuesday night for people who are new to group riding, who want to get a little bit of fitness in the middle of the week. So Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, we meet at Ford Park and we roll out for about an hour and a half. And I also do Sunday rides once a month. We'll go out to a local coffee shop in Sela and patronize a local business and get to know our area on bike. So it's a whole other experience. So I hope that some of you will join us, and let's make our presence known on the roads here and get drivers used to seeing us on the road and teach them, educate them how to share the road with us. So that's my goal. And that's my 20 cents because I know that was long. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Gabby. Now, I had a conversation a couple weeks out with Chris Vasquez leading up to Open Streets. And he had shared some resources where I think it's a website for Metro. And it shows you like the access points to bike lanes and all that. And the map, once you zoom into the Sela region, it's completely it's a desert in terms of access, right? And that, again, whenever I have these conversations with people and they educate me on something, and it changes the way I feel about things. And when I've had the chance to go on a bike or walk or some sort of transportation that's not a car, I get to see the community for how it is. I get to experience new things. I get to see how these people connect to it. And it just fills you with this new perspective of things that you wouldn't get from a car while you're driving just past,
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I mean, I sort of echo her story too, because I bought my bike because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I had that urgency to go out, to be mobile, to move my body. And I think the bike really afforded that opportunity for me. And so I think since then, definitely we're seeing that increase. We're seeing that increase in people, on the road, starting to bike more and really understand what it feels like to be on the other end, in front of a car and not be the person in the car. And so I think as we're seeing these movements grow for maybe, adding bike lanes or improving mobility, I think at the end of the day, it's still important to center mobility justice in the people who are biking, not because they want to, but because they have no other choice. And, recognizing their experience as well. And so I'm hoping, as biking seems to take off in Southeast LA, it's really great to see us explore alternative ways to move around in space. But it'd be interesting to see what it would look like to circle it back to the folks that we've seen, working in the warehouses and using the bikes to go to Vernon, get to work. But yes, it's great to see that upward trend.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Gabby. And like you mentioned, it looks like she has certain dates throughout the week where people can go and join on these bike rides. I know Sela Bicycle Center is also on top of that, setting up different dates if you can make those specific ones. Because I know Tuesday at 7 p.m. I can't be there because I have to be here at the station. So But, it starts with that and just making it more accessible to people. So thank you for that. And with that, we're going to move on to Huntington Park.
They mentioned walking down Pacific Boulevard when they still had the bakery, the arcade, trees on Pacific, and the fair. And I can't believe I miss walking, but I do. I've heard stories about the arcade.
Yeah.
I know my brothers had a really good time there.
Yeah, I want to say it's the underground arcade that they had. Yeah, because it was, now I think there's an AT&T store in one corner, and the next one, it used to be like a mini swap meet, but I think it's gone now too. But yeah, underground, there was this arcade. It was always musty in there, dark, but you could just, a couple nickels, couple dimes, you were there playing for hours. And just to add to that, I don't know if some people here remember, but there was a place called Nickel City. There's on Pacific where the Curaçao's at. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Is that toward the northern end?
Yeah, towards the end of the Pacific, yeah. So right there, now there's a Starbucks in that shopping center, but there was a place called Nickel City. And it was a huge arcade, and everything there was a nickel. So you go in there, you just get your bag of nickels, and you were there all day just popping nickels in there, playing Street Fighter, like maquinitas. Awesome memory that I have from HP there.
Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese could never. That's a really good rate.
But yeah, that place unfortunately closed down because nickels are not going to keep you sustained.
Yeah, they don't get you
Cannot.
far.
And in this economy. But with that, the next one is my favorite childhood memory was a Christmas parade and fair on Pacific Boulevard in HP. And those are good. I think they closed down all of Pacific for the most part, sometimes for that.
Yeah. See, my dad took me to see Terminator 2. I was only 6. Okay, that's like rated R. Anyway, my dad snuck me in Huntington Park Theater.
Hey, I remember that. The next one here we have is greatest memories of Huntington Park include Gage Bowl, bowling with the homies, Salt Lake Park during sunsets, and walking Pacific Boulevard with the fam.
Probably fam.
But there's a letter missing there, but we get what you're saying.
I totally thought Bell could claim Gage Bowl until I looked at a map and I realized it's technically in Huntington Park.
Yeah, right? Like on the border.
Yeah, it was so sad. See, my dad would bring us to the double feature theaters every weekend to keep us busy. I would not mind that.
Yeah, for else. Let's see. State Street is where I grew up with my grandpa Felix in Huntington Park. He recently passed away this year, but driving down State Street always floods me with happy memories that I'll cherish forever. Damn. Rest in peace, Felix.
Let's see. For the next one, Solis after hours drinking while being a minor. I said what's up to Manuel later. Okay. Later found out he had been dead. Solis lost his liquor license for selling alcohol after 2 a.m. That's a lot in one line.
That's a lot. Yeah. You know what? I remember that story clearly because a guy came up to me and he was telling me that I guess the store was called Sulis. I think Solis was just a misspelling here. But apparently he says that I guess there was a guy outside named Manuel who used to hang out all the time and he was always buying alcohol there. And I think one day he showed up. He said hi to him. He was in his car. And I think later he came back and he found out that he had already passed away in the car.
Oh, when you saw him.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, damn, that's hardcore. And he's like, yeah, and shortly after that, they closed the store down because they were selling alcohol to minors. Yeah, so that's a big no-no, of course, but nonetheless an experience that, some of us may have gone through at some point. I know I definitely had some friends that were going into stores who were like, hey, this place sells you beer. And I was like, bro, we're like 19, wait. But anyways, let me see here. Let me play that real quick.
The very first HP Run Club meeting at Art Space HP. It felt so amazing to run with people who live around me.
Edie, she's one of the founders for HP Run Club.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I think Art Space itself, since it's come up, it's become like the hub for creatives and for just community resources. I think it's one of those awesome spots that I would have just dreamt of when I was a little kid,
No, but shout out to Edie. Seeing like the crowds that gather during the week to go for a run, I think her work is making a big difference in how we're moving in Southeast LA.
And you want to do?
Oh yeah, so being able to be a musician in Southeast LA.
This is from one of the homies called Edgar. And he's from Chencha Berrinches, which I don't know if you've heard, but they've been Southgate icons for maybe 20 years or so, like in the ska scene. So I met him through what was it, Southern Arts Festival a couple of years ago, when I got to interview Chencha Berrinches about like the impact and like their influences in Southgate and just the culture, the music culture in itself. And he was there, shared some information, and he was like, Southeast LA. And I was like, hey, yeah. Let's see. When I was growing up in HP, I could only ride my bike up and down my street. Little girls still only ride on our block. So I guess that has to do with access. You know, it doesn't feel like it might be the safest for little kids. I guess I get from that.
I think it's also like a gendered experience. Like when we were talking about like me riding my bike during the pandemic in the LA River, sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I rode my bike by myself. Yeah. Like those entire 30 miles. And I don't think today I could do that again. Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully they find their people and can go on group rides so they could really journey beyond the block. But, yeah.
And with that ends our stories with Huntington Park. Let me jump in some audio real quick. We got a couple more. But this one I didn't get her name, but it was a really, really nice señora who stopped by at the booth and just was able to share some words with us.
33 años tengo viviendo aquí en La Corona. Pues antes era muy difícil vivir acá. Uno se quería hasta cambiar porque había mucho vandalismo, pero ahora vivimos con mucha tranquilidad. Está más tranquila la ciudad de Bell. Yo les recomiendo que vengan a vivir aquí porque aquí no hay vandalismo, aquí no hay tanto grafitis. Todos los vecinos que yo tengo, que son 11 personas y todos están satisfechos de vivir aquí. Principalmente hay mucha distracción para los niños. Los niños andan en bicicleta con mucha tranquilidad. Hay espacios para que vayan los niños a patinar, para que anden en bicicleta. El parque está muy limpio, están completamente todo está limpio.
She was so sweet when she came out to me. She was like eager to share, and I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, no, the señoras are where it's at. They have their stories.
All right, let's see. And then I'm going to do one more audio here from Marco.
Marco Padilla. For me, growing up around in Southeast LA was always like an interesting, experience for me because there's so many different involvement and community all around the place, and there's lots of new people to find, new places to explore. So usually, if you ever get bored or something, there's always usually something around Southeast LA to keep you entertained and all of that stuff. And that's what I like about it. The community is always strong, So one thing I would recommend for them, well, if they're like maybe, some teen, that's like new to Bell, trying to make new friends, I'd recommend, go to Ernest Debs. There's always lots of fun athletic activities there, and you can find people with like-minded interests. And let's say like you're a new family and stuff here, you can explore all the nice shops around. Lots of them are family owned, and I think that's what helps them, it's that sense of community that builds up the bonds.
Those are true words from a community member, too. And I think a lot of us feel that way about our city,
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I already dropped a very good recommendation, Ernest E. Debs. Shout out to the kids that played like AYSO soccer, I think, on that field. Yeah.
Let's see. And with that, we're going to move on to Southgate. You go ahead, Alejandra.
Let's see. So Southgate Parade was my pride and joy when I was little. Tweety Boulevard. Thank you. Yeah. I don't think there's been a parade recently, right, in Southgate?
That's I think it's been a couple years since they've actually had one. Let's see. So the next one is Late Night Talks at Southgate Park. I frequent that park basically a couple of days out of the week when I go run and just walk my dog or take my baby, and we're just walking around. Great spot to just de-stress.
Definitely. Let's see. My favorite memory of Sela was getting my very own apartment. Growing up in South Central, moving to Southgate was very refreshing to me, and I was very excited to explore my new city. Some of my favorites are Wing House, Southgate Park.
I think it was Azalea.
Yeah. Okay, Azalea, Brown Soul Brewing. Also, shocker that Azalea wasn't always there. It feels like it's always been there, but I remember when it was like a vacant lot. And then
for years. It was just there for years. But now it's a place where people go do their shopping. All right, the next one we have here is my favorite memory is sneaking out of my house at 16 and biking to see my boyfriend at 1 a.m. down Tweety to Dearborn and Firestone. Hey, so teen stories.
Scandalous.
Scandalous.
Let's see. My house when Santa drives by on Christmas.
Yeah.
I always get a little scared when it's like those Christmas parades where they're handing things out because all you hear are sirens.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, shit's going down. And then it's just Santa.
It's just Santa?
Yeah, it was with toys.
My first childhood at home. Thanks for keeping me, thanks for keeping my family united and giving me neighbors I consider family. 323 all day. And, okay, let's see. And before we move on to Cudahy, we got a couple more here.
That it has no history, or that like there's no like big media platforms that kind of like tell our stories, and so like our stories have been rooted in ourselves. But I would say that like that it doesn't exist. That's a misconception. Know a lot about like South LA, South Central, and East LA, but rarely do we hear stories from Cela or like this part of LA. Ooh, okay. I've been waiting for this question. Ramirez Restaurant in Maywood. I think it's on Atlantic. It's super good. They have really good enmoladas. The family's from Puebla, and it's a really nice restaurant. I went to college away from Cela, but like whenever I come back, it's like my favorite spot to go.
And that was me asking them what they recommended to somebody, outside of Southeast LA. And the Ramirez Restaurant, I don't know if you've been there.
No, but like now I'm adding it to the list.
Yeah, it's a pretty good spot. Actually, I recently found out that my older son, I think he's the guy who owns the restaurant. I think he's his uncle or something. So I was like, what? This is cool.
No, he has a connection.
Let's see here. We'll go ahead and move with Cudahy's next. So let's go. You want to do that one? Yeah.
Sure. I'd say so. Extremely delighted to have a Sprouts Farmers Market in Cudahy, one of my favorite markets to shop. No, they were really strategic with that. It's like right next to the Choose Fitness, like the pipeline from one to the other.
Keeps that parking lot busy because, for a while too, if people remember, that was a Kmart, then it was a Big K Kmart. We had the Pick and Save. That place was...
It's gone through stages.
So the next one we have here is growing up in Cudahy, I remember walking to and enjoying Clara Park.
And then the last one, I used to just like walking down the Live Oak Street because of the Cholo apartments.
Cholo.
If I know the ones you're referencing, I think they've been like recently like repainted or something. Yeah, a whole new wash.
Oh man, okay. And then I'll do a little bit of Lynwood just because it's short. But that one is. My first punk show in Lynwood, it was 1997. I saw Schism and Chencha Berrinches. I was hooked after that, going to all the backyard shows, and many years later, I'm still going and playing shows. That one really resonates with me because back in my teen years, I was into the punk scene, and I was going to all the local shows around, like Elizabeth Street and Maywood, Bell, Southgate, nonstop, especially after they closed the Allen Theater in Southgate. People resorted to just throwing shows at their houses, their backyards. Things would get rowdy for sure, but it was definitely cool just to be able to have a space where we can experience the kind of culture that we were into. But yeah, I'll go ahead and play some audio real quick just because we have like maybe 4 more here. We got from Nancy, and I believe she's a current HP council member.
My favorite memory in Southeast LA is playing at the LA River with my tios and my primos on our Cudahy Park visits. My tios are now angels.
Thank you for sharing that, Nancy. And I think some of the last things that we're going to be talking about here is outside of Downey and then LA River and some certain spaces. I think LA River, it seems that for a lot of us, it was like our backyard. We lacked a backyard in our homes or super small green spaces. That LA River was like the huge open space that we can kind of experience all together for different things, Before we get into that, though, I do want to just wrap up with Downey. Do you want to take on that one?
Sure, because I have family from there. I remember the first time I came to Downey as a mountain native, I was amazed that LA was so big. A whole community out here just a short drive away.
Yeah, it's funny because... before people really knew, some people still don't know, but before they can pinpoint where Bell is, and I'll be like, oh, I live in Cudahy or I live in Maywood, they'll be like, I don't know where that's at. I was like, Downey?
Yeah.
Oh, I know where Downey's at. Yeah, around there. So it was like the city that helps you pinpoint.
Definitely.
Part of Southeast LA.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm going to go jump into one of the last audios we have here from Javier.
I see a lot of people think that we're like, it's like a desolate place. I think Stella has like a lot of history of like corruption, but there's so much community here and so much promising avenues that we can explore. And I love things like this because, there's community out here that deserves to be funded, protected, and grown. Having more queer spaces in Southeast LA. Currently, there's very limited space, and I want more spaces for queer people to hang out and be themselves.
Thank you so much for that, Javier. Did you want to add to that or anything?
Happy Pride.
Yeah, hey, that's right. Happy Pride.
Yeah. I was actually just having this conversation with a friend about needing more queer spaces in Southeast LA. Yeah.
No.
Happy Pride.
Yeah, hey, and again, I think when people have ideas or they feel like there's a need for something in their city, I think we should make it easier or at least more accessible for us to create those spaces. I feel like HP Run Club was a perfect example. Like, people wanted that. We had open streets, people wanted that. Like, we just gotta get together, plan it out, and just try to see how we can make it happen, I think that's a start for sure.
Definitely. There's so many networks that already exist and that can be built. I think it surprises me every time that there's people that are willing to do the hard work together to make something like that happen.
All right, cool. So we're basically at the end of this. We got a few more post-its or notes that we want to go ahead and share. Let me make sure this is one here.
My fondest memories of Stella have been going to the LA River, specifically the one in Cudahy, and the big bridge that is standing right there. That bridge for me has been a space that has opened up my mind to the world of possibilities. I remember in high school, I would walk on that bridge, stand in the middle, and just kind of look out and imagine what the river could look like. I would go with friends, and the times I've been, we had so many wonderful conversations, from having levitated bike lanes to actually being able to pull out the concrete and bring back the rainbow trouts. There was even a few times where I would bring my hammock and tie it to the beams in the rail and just hang out until the train came.
The next section we have here is LA River Shared Spaces. And we'll start off with, my whole life is rooted in Stella. I moved away for college, but I miss it so dearly. The panaderias, the buñuelos, everything. The LA River was my biggest escape spot as a teen.
Yeah. I mean, I feel so lucky to have the LA River in my backyard because it really is that public space for so many new generations of people too, whether you're old, whether you're a child or in between. There's a way for you to make it a space that works for you.
You want to do that one?
Yeah, this one's interesting. Eating lettuce in the famous LA River Bridge. I'm like, were you like biting into the head of lettuce? Like, that's what I'm envisioning. Or even then, if you're snacking on it, like chips, like that's also unique. Yeah.
Let's see. The next one we have here is, there are flowers that grow at the LA River every spring. They are yellow and remind me of happiness. I recently took my significant other. He picked me a handful. I wish he knew how happy that made me. I wish he was here at the Open Streets event with me. Yeah, that's cute. Yeah. It's really cute.
Smoking pot in the Rio on the river. The only nature we had in the neighborhood. A little spot to chill and watch the water flow. Glad that it's getting restored. Yeah, I think the LA River is the one and only time I've ever smoked a joint.
Yeah.
That was in the LA River. Yeah.
You know, back in my teen years, I used to live in Cudahy. So we'll go to Cudahy Park and then walk through the Southgate Bridge to get to the Edwards Theater. Oh. Yeah, so my parents couldn't take us to the movies. I'd be like, oh, well, let's just walk through it, and we'll cut through the river, past like this abandoned place, and then there was a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of homeless people across the bottom. Mm-hmm. But it'd always be an adventure, like just a couple of 14, 15-year-olds just walking through the river, going through the bridge. It was just cool.
I mean, that's a hack there. Because for me, one time when I went to the Edwards Theater, we didn't have a ride back home. So me and my friend, like at 10 p.m., we're just walking over Firestone Boulevard. But I'm more scared of the highway and the 710 and all the ramps than I would be just taking the river home. Had I known, I might have taken that route instead.
All right, the next one we have here is Yips Jam Session on the LA River. Skateboarding, drumming, xylophones, drawing, friends. And that's actually from one of the homies, Emmanuel. Yeah. But I also want to say he might have been friends with the person eating lettuce in the river bridge.
Wait.
I want
What
to say
type of lettuce was it? Was it like literal?
I want to say it was literal lettuce.
Okay, it's not metaphor. Okay. The
All
devil's lettuce.
All right, and with that, I'm going to put one of the second to last audios here. And this is from Jess.
One of my homegrown memories about living in Sela was going to the Fort Park pool in Bell Gardens and learning how to swim and just being there almost every day of the summer vacation, trying to avoid the heat, staying fresh. It was a really great resource that we had available at the time. I'm excited now that they're doing a new pool, and the opening is going to be this upcoming October. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you so much for submitting that, Jazz.
Let's see.
Super simple.
Oh, remove it. Okay. I love LA.
That's
short and sweet.
The next one we have is one time I punched Christian Vasquez. We're homies, so it's cool. Damn. Sorry, Christian. I had to say that one.
See, I've lived here all 26 years and have beautiful memories of friendship, family, and love. Can't picture myself anywhere else. Me either.
Sela is all I know, all the good and the bad I'm thankful for.
See, and then got my family to complete a certified training for emergency preparedness before the pandemic. Okay.
Hey, nice.
That's my mom. I think she got me like so many earthquake prep kits. I think she'd be super excited to take like a training for emergencies. She loves her first aid kits.
And the last voicemail we have here is from Geraldine and Liz.
So my name is Geraldine.
My name's Liz. I love Southeast LA. I just wish parking wouldn't suck all the time. I would say community, but this is what I love about it. It's finally coming back.
I don't know. I think the biggest misconception is that it's like a drive-over city. Like people think like, oh, like that's where you drive through to actually go do all the fun stuff. Yep. But I think it's like becoming such a new thing here. Like I could tell the community is trying to like bring a lot of like small business and activities to do around here. I appreciate that.
And that was our last audio from Geraldine and Liz. And they make a great point. Like, our communities are labeled as gateway cities. And I think that's important to understand because gateway, right, it just means that you're passing through, really. And that's what happens when you don't have any sense of connection or community that you can share and show people, you know, because at the end of the day, we just went through this whole hour of conversation and we realized that the people have different experiences in different spaces, but they're ignored for a lot of the time because there's no real platform for this kind of stuff, you know? And I think that's where your work and something like this comes in, where it fills those gaps and puts the pieces together and shows people, oh, dang, like everything that we do is validated by each other, you know? I think that's how we're going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in you mentioning gateway too, it's also like, you know, what have we been a gateway to? And so much of the story of Southeast LA is environmental injustice, right? And the highways that define our lived experience, air pollution. So sort of flipping that term on its head and having it be a gateway for something different and not so much the goods movement and pollution and industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're basically at the end of these stories, of these memories, and I want to say thank you, Alejandra, for really coming together with this, with me, helping me, you know, sort this out, and at the same time, just being able to provide these resources that you've been able to put together to the community. What did you think of all this?
I mean, I thought it was really, really sweet. I think it's interesting to be able to go to a public event where there's such a high volume of people. And it's nice to know that was an opportunity to capture just so many stories. And it sounded very intergenerational too. Like there were some younger folks, some older folks too, a señora here or there. So I thought that was really sweet. And I think it's a reminder of why it's important for us to document our own stories with our own tools as well.
Yeah. And I know you've been able to put some events like this together as well. I think you mentioned like in Maywood Park is where you had set something up to collect also stories and memories, right?
Yeah, so it's been through different areas. I think it started with a grant from LA Metro, I think back in 2021 to do pop-ups. But it's been in multiple places. It's been Southgate Park, Salt Lake Park, I still haven't had the guts to do it in Bell because I don't know, they have a lot of staff at Veterans Park. But yeah, I've been sprinkled around in different parts of Southeast LA using community mapping to gather stories. Yeah.
And then what kind of for the few minutes that we have left, I do want to just kind of delve a little deep into how you go about this. Like, what's been the easiest way to collect this information from people for you?
I think for me, the in-person component, I think, has been critical to the work to collect the stories, because it's not just so much, the gathering stories part, but whenever I have pop-ups, I try to offer like free coffee, free agua, and create an environment where people are just hanging out, and with the story sort of being something that organically comes out from that conversation, where they end up maybe wanting to provide a story or record the story. But I think just building trust with each other and having genuine conversations and just a desire and intent to actually genuinely know the person that you're talking to has always been key to actually facilitating the story gathering. But I think if you can always offer an incentive and, have a couple of chairs just for people to sit down and pause, I think that makes it a much more fruitful, nuanced conversation when you're doing story gathering.
Yeah. I like how you use that word pause, because life is so fast, so chaotic sometimes that you don't get to sit down and really just kind of be with your thoughts and kind of like just dwell on aspects of yourself. And when you give the person the ability to do that, like you're offering them, again, a space for just disconnecting for a second, but also allowing them I would say sometimes it's even a privilege to just think back, reminisce or something, because that's sometimes it can be seen as a luxury, because, when I see it in terms of my parents growing up, they didn't really have the time to stop, slow down. They were always just trying to survive. And now me as an adult, I see the work that they have to put into this, but I also know I have the ability now to just sit down, talk, not have to be worried about surviving all the time, And I think, again, that comes as a luxury sometimes to a lot of us. And I think if we're able to reframe that and see how important it is for us to slow down, it's going to allow for these kind of stories to come out and just really connect. And I think that's the first step to feeling like you are part of your community.
Yeah. And I think that's where like the whole like mapping component and gathering stories in person is so important, because if all you feel is a sense of alienation, then Southeast LA can't necessarily feel like home, So I think story gathering is one way to start bridging that gap, because how often are we actually in spaces where we encounter community organically? We're all used to just doing our own thing, being very individualistic, and it's not normalized to just pause and have encounters with your neighbors, with your community, unless there's a reason behind it. So yeah, slowing down.
And then just lastly, before we wrap this up, what do you see in the next couple of months or in the future for your project? Like, where do you see this going, or how do you plan on involving it?
Good question. I think right now there's definitely a backlog, but I think for the map, I'm really trying to dedicate more time to really thinking through my methodology, the intentions behind the work that I'm doing. And I think one manifestation of this project has been the Sala Community Archive, which is a more recent project that I co-founded with a friend. And I think it's just growing to be a much bigger project that's all about archiving and documenting our histories, but in a more like structured, organized way. I don't know. It's just I want it to be a big history project.
Okay. No, I'm glad to hear that, because, not that every project has to have like a long-term goal to it. It matters for what it is, but knowing that you're going to continue pushing forward and develop this, I think it's great. Because are you working on this on your own? You say right now with a friend, but outside of that, the community map is strictly yourself.
Strictly myself in terms of like social media, the mapping and everything. But shout out to my partner and my friends and my family who drive with me and help me set up.
Nice.
My mom has done community engagement when we have the pop-ups. But yeah, it's been just me, and I think that's why I'm eager to grow it, just to build my own capacity to do this work more diligently in a more organized way that also honors the stories that people present, but in a more timely manner. I think that makes sense.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad that I was able to sit down with you and have this conversation, meet you, and just really see the person behind these projects. 'Cause I think sometimes there's just that disconnect, but when you're able to have an intimate moment kind of like this and just really talk it through, it's like it feels like we knew each other for a while now or something, and I think that's the connection we should strive for. But outside of that, I know you gave some links earlier for your pages and your projects, but you mind just giving that one more time for us?
Yeah, definitely. For the Instagram, it's just the Sela community map, and then in there's a link tree that takes you to the digital mapping project. And then I guess I should also name drop the Sela Community Archive, which isn't linked there, but it goes hand in hand with the work that we're doing.
Awesome. And yeah, I mean, again, this episode is just a blip of whatever I just did at Open Streets, but please make sure to check out Alejandra's work. It goes deep. It reaches further out than this will ever do. So please show some support, and I hope it's not the last time we do a collaboration.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody else, you're listening to KQBH LP, Los Angeles, California, 101.5 FM, a community service of the Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory. You just finished listening to the Social Primate. We will see you guys next week.
Working with the city of Bell and bringing Bell Open Streets to our communities was an experience of a lifetime. It was years of work that finally came to fruition, and they paid off. Being able to see kids, adults ride their bikes along Gage Avenue, connecting with community, getting to know each other, but just experience a day as, Gage as an open park, a pop-up park with no cars, seeing their faces and seeing the joy. Yeah, priceless.